Damn, it feels good to be back. Welcome everybody to Saturday, the 11th of April, I think it is, episode 5 of the podcast. We made it to episode 5 of the podcast. I didn't think I'd make it this long. I didn't think I'd find the effort to make 5 podcasts and album reviews, but it's been a good month. Give myself a round of applause. I think I did well. Yeah. I know. Thanks. Thank you guys. God, it feels good to be loved. Welcome everybody once again to the episode 5 of the podcast. My name is Reese, and today on CTI Radio I am going to be ignoring the news today. I'm going to be ignoring it. I can't be bothered talking about you know what and how many people have you know whatted in new you know what. I'm going to be talking about that on the Facebook thing. I might just upload a video to talk about it. I don't want to put it on the podcast today just because I want to make it a little bit lighter, go back and talk about some old school stories, taking it back, rewinding back to the 90s, talking about some good old hip hop stories. It might make you feel good, might make you feel a little bit sad, depending on who you are. But we're going to talk about it, and it's going to be based around Death Row Records. Most of it is anyway. That's all the stories sort of culminated. Because I was looking into different stories, from that era, and most of them always culminate or involve a lot of Death Row Records. It's just the nature of the game back then, I suppose. They were involved in everything, weren't they? Even East Coast, the only thing to talk about in East Coast was either Bad Boy or Death Row, because they were just beefing with each other. But yeah, where should I start today? I think I should start by saying I didn't forget about an album review on Wednesday. I know some of you might think, if you said on the last week's podcast you were deciding between 2 albums and you couldn't do it on Wednesday. No, right. I did say that. That's my fault. That is my fault. But I watched... was it last week or this week? God, these weeks are just literally just melting into each other. I have no idea what week we're on. I think it was last week. I was watching NWA, the Straight Outta Compton movie, and I was just inspired to do that. And I thought on the Saturday I was gonna talk about that in a couple of weeks, and I was gonna decide between 2 albums, which I'm not gonna tell you about because I'm still gonna do them. But I decided this week, as I say, at some point. I don't know if it was this week. I can't remember. I was gonna do the Straight Outta Compton album. And I didn't want to make it just a normal review. I wanted to get some of you guys' opinions. I wanted to get some videos together, some footage, just to make it a little bit more special, because it is a special album. It's probably one of the most special albums in hip hop ever. It might be the most important special album in hip hop. I mean, I say that a lot. I said that about Doggy Style, but there's an argument that can be made that says maybe we wouldn't even had Doggy Style if it wasn't for Straight Outta Compton. We definitely would have had Dr. Dre if it wasn't for Straight Outta Compton. But that is a story for next Wednesday, and I hope you like it, because I'm going to be putting a lot of effort into it. I really am. I can't wait to do it. 100%. It's going to be mint. Hope you're all staying inside. I hope you're all having a good week. I don't know if you've been to work. I don't know if you've been staying in, but I hope you've had a good week. And today I'm literally just going to, as I say, I'm going to keep it light, keep you entertained with a couple of hip hop stories, because I like talking about hip hop. I know a lot of you like learning things about hip hop and music in general, and I'm going to be your teacher today. So we're going to start off with everyone's favourite underappreciated rapper from the 90s, maybe even ever, Corrupt. Now, Corrupt is one of the members of the Dog Pound, along with Daz Dillinger and Snoop Dogg. A lot of you probably know him, but a lot of you might not know how he started. I might have, you might have skipped over that part of his life. So we're going to be talking about it today. We're going to be talking about where he came from, how he became to be a part of Death Row, and how he became to be a part of probably one of the best groups of the 90s, along with Bone Thugs and Harmony and the Outlaws. The sort of second, the sort of soldiers of the big boys of the 90s, because the Outlaws were with Tupac, Bone Thugs and Harmony were with Eazy-E, and the Dog Pound were with Snoop Dogg, because for some reason everyone needed soldiers back then. But we're going to be talking about that. I will get into that. That is the first one we're going to be talking about. Just also a little preview of what's going to be coming up as well. I'm going to be talking about Tupac. I'm going to be talking about Nas and the beef that they had, all the stuff that they went through and how it all ended in the end. I'm going to be talking about Snoop Dogg as well, just by himself. His story is going to be about the Nas and Tupac situation, just because this story was kind of weird, so I thought it'd be good to have 2 or 3 different perspectives of how it actually went down, the moment that we're going to be talking about. And then we're going to be talking about the one and only. You can't talk about the 90s hip-hop scene without mentioning him. You can't talk about any kind of hip-hop because he's had so much influence on him. On it, should I say. Suge Knight. Suge Knight. But first, DJ, where are we going? That's right, we're going back in time. We're going to go back, way back to even before the 90s. We're going to go back to the late 80s because we're going to be talking about Kurupt and where he came from. Kurupt actually grew up in Philadelphia. I don't know if a lot of you know that. He does mention it sometimes in his songs where he says he was born and raised in Philadelphia but his home is California, which is interesting to me because he grew up in a... He sort of, I wouldn't say he abandoned his Philly heritage, which he certainly hasn't, but at the same time he sort of diminishes that part of his life and sort of plays down that part of his life and more bigs up when he actually moved to California. That's when his life properly started, and it's true. 16 years old, Kurupt was involved in a car accident. He was kicked out of his house by his mother. She was not doing very well. Apparently they weren't very wealthy or anything, but his dad was in California, so she ordered him to get out of the house. So he moved to California to go stay with his dad. That also didn't end up very well. It was it's sort of a situation where once it kind of reminds me of Tokyo Drift, where Sean was like, so where are we moving this time? And his mum's like, yo, we're not moving anywhere, you're moving to fucking Japan. Well, in this case, his mum was like, you're moving to California. And same as in Tokyo Drift, he sort of misbehaves for his dad, doesn't he? He's like, goes to the fucking racing scene. He's like, yo, like Donkey Kong I don't know, something Drift King or whatever. I don't know, Texas accent, insert whatever he says in Tokyo Drift here. Well, that's what he says. He's like, you're the Justin Timberlake of Japan, right? Or something like that. What does DK stand for? Drift King. I'm totally going off subject. So he moves to California and he starts hanging around with what would later become his neighborhood and what would later become, his crew and what it represents today. He, for people that don't actually know, Kurupt actually represents the Rolling 60s. It's a Crip neighborhood. So he eventually joined that gang, but moving back a little bit before that, I believe he was involved in a robbery or something that also then got him kicked out of his dad's house. He started sofa surfing, if that's the word for it. Sleeping on couches. Couch surfing, that's the word I'm looking for. Sofa surfing. Why isn't it not called sofa surfing? That sounds well better. Couch surfing. Nah, sofa surfing. I'm going to say that from now on. I don't care. I've just invented a new thing. Unless it is a thing and I've never heard it. But he started doing that. And he eventually started living at his mates, who would then eventually become... getting involved, in the Rolling 60s. But his mate would never let him get involved in sort of the gang lifestyle. I remember Kurupt in an interview once saying he was about to get in a car and go do some gang shit with his mates. And his mate walked up to him and said, what the fuck are you doing? Kurupt was like, I'm going to go roll with the homies. And the mate was like, nah, get the fuck out of the car. You're going in the studio. You've got, you're going to drag this neighborhood out of, the depths of depravity and just, gang, sex, violence. You're going to turn this neighborhood around. You're going to make loads of money. You're going to put us on the map. So apparently that day saved his life, because that day, apparently they were involved in a shootout in that car, and some of them got arrested. So if he was in that car, then surely he would have been involved in, in that horrible situation. But yeah, before he even joined the Crips, just a little funny story about Kurupt. He was obviously when he was in California, when he first moved, he didn't understand the culture. As in, he was walking around wearing blue trainers, red trainers. And he wasn't representing the set at that time. So there was a funny part where he went to go pick up his little brother from school. And this 13-year-old kid walked up to him and said, no, you've got to take off your shoes. At the time, I think he was wearing the breezy Jordans or something. I think that's what they were called. The dark blue ones. So obviously Crip colours or something like that. Or it might have been the red Jordans. It was the red Jordans, because as the story goes along, he's going to find out this kid was in the Bloods. So this kid walks up to him and goes, you need to take off them colours, you need to take off them shoes. And Kurupt was like, no, I ain't going to listen to you. I'm 18 years old, I'm going to listen to a 13-year-old kid. And the kid was like, what? And Corrupt was like, get the fuck out of here. And he goes, I'm going to get my mate. So he's still waiting at the school. And this kid about the same age, about 13, 14 years old, like rolls up on this little bike and he goes, yo, you need to take off them shoes. And Crook was like, get the fuck out of here. And he goes, what the fuck did you just say to me? And Crook was like, get the fuck out of here. I'm going to listen to no 13-year-old kid. So the kid goes, I'm going to go in my house. I'm going to get my gun. I'm going to come back and shoot you. And Crook was like, yeah, whatever, fuck off. He comes down to find out later that the kid actually did come back. He was looking for him, but he'd left because his brother came out. And he later on in life, he came to find out that kid was like an actual killer. Like that kid had actually killed people. Like this 13-year-old kid, he was well known around the area, and apparently he's dead now or something like that. So that's a little fascinating story for him. And I thought that was funny when like, you know, he didn't understand the gang culture, and he didn't understand, you know, what was going on in LA at the time, you know, and he still can't walk into certain neighborhoods and wear certain colors because it's real out there, man. You can get killed for that shit. So Rolling Sixties, by the way, I believe that, you know, the crew that he's representing, I believe the Rolling Sixties, I think Game's in the Rolling Sixties, and I know Whack 100 is, I believe. He's like an OG. He's like I think he's Game's manager. Yeah, so I think Game's in the same set as Corrupt. But moving on, like Corrupt was already rapping in Philadelphia, and he knew he was good. And as I say, that the neighborhood knew he was good, and the neighborhood, you know, wanted him to carry on with his rap career. You know, get him out of the gang life, sort of. You know, not get him involved in the whole sort of shooting, robbing, stealing, thugging, like, you know, that kind of area, which I suppose is like a pre-story to 6ix9ine, because the way that their neighborhood did it for Corrupt is the right way, and the way, you know, the 9 Trays for 6ix9ine did it the completely wrong way, because, you know, that's how he got caught up in all that. Like he thought he then was, you know, he thought he was gangster and he was ordering hits on people. So I suppose Corrupt, you know, had a better, you know, example of people around him, I suppose. But yeah, he gets to this it's like a rap competition, like a freestyle competition, and he wins it. And he comes back next week as like special guest, and it was the way it worked apparently. He sort of was like, you know, the MVP from last week, so he got to sit and listen to, you know, to the people from this week. So he sat there and he's doing it. So like this guy wins. Corrupt gets on the mic, freestyles against him, beats him, and at the time, obviously you got like, you know, you got all of like South Central there. You got people representing from Corrupt's neighborhood, and then you've got some people from Long Beach. And some of you know where I'm going with this when I say Long Beach. Who else was there? So Corrupt's like freestyling, he's beating everyone, he thinks he's sick. This guy from Long Beach comes up, goes, I'll take him on. So they start rapping, like going back and forth for ages and ages and ages. Eventually, guy turns around and goes, you know what? We're both as good as each other. Let's just rap together. Let's just put on a show for these people, and let's just see where it goes from there. That person went on to be Snoop Dogg, a guy from Long Beach. He was representing. That's how him and Corrupt met. So after that, it was sort of a deal where you know, whoever got signed first, you know, would then look after the other guys that were hanging around each other. You know, like let's say it's like, you know, Corrupt got signed first or Snoop got signed first. You know, he would take him with him. You know, look after each other. And obviously it was Snoop that went on to be signed first. And that's how the Dog Pound were formed. Daz Dillinger, I believe he was already working around Death Row. Don't quote me on that because I'm not actually sure. I would love to like look into the background of Daz Dillinger because he's one of the most underappreciated like producers of all time. Like it was very well known. Like for example, It Ain't No Fun If the Homies Can't Have None. Like Daz Dillinger wrote that beat, and then he wrote like, you know, the beat, the drums and like, you know, the bass and everything. And then Dre came, you know, to sprinkle a little bit of magic all over it, and that's what Dre did, you know, like sort of made it like a little bit more special. But Daz Dillinger wrote Ambitions as a Rider. He actually had that before Tupac even came into the building. As I say, he wrote Ain't No Fun. I believe he also did Who Am I, What's My Name. So, you know, Daz Dillinger, like, you know, really good. And as I say, like part of the Dog Pound. Corrupt and Daz Dillinger and Snoop Dogg all killed it. Obviously, they were represented on Snoop's Doggy Style, the very first album. We talked about that in the album review, how they were on like a lot of songs, either together or separate on different songs. And then it came time for them to And then this is where, where all of our stories start to intertwine, because we move on to Death Row now, and obviously I'll cover Suge Knight in a little bit more detail in a minute, but Suge Knight always apparently likes Corrupt and Daz, sort of. They treated him as the sort of little kids of Death Row, the youngins, just they respected the Crippin', if you know what I mean, because you know what a Crip Walk is and all that. If you look at gang culture and you follow hip hop, you know what a Crip Walk is. Well, Suge Knight and all of his boys were massive bloods, and this is why Death Row was really special at the time, because it showed a really good example, and it's never been done before, and I don't think it's ever been done properly after this. In the height of the 90s, in the height of this gang war on the streets, you had Death Row Records, who brought the Bloods and the Crips together. So you had a lot of Pyrus represented as Suge Knight, who owned the company, and then you had these little Crips these Corrupt and Nate Dogg, Daz Dillinger, Snoop Dogg coming in, and Suge sort of respected that. He was look at these little guys, man, Crip walking and all that shit, 20 years old, fair play, we respect that. And at the time, Lady of Rage was supposed to bring out an album, we're talking 1995 now. Lady of Rage was set to bring out an album, but it wasn't quite ready yet. So Corrupt and Daz went up to Suge and was we're ready, we're ready. And I think it was Interscope didn't want to release Dog Food, which was the Dog Pound's debut album, because they were waiting on Rage's album. Rage, had that, set in the calendar, but she wasn't quite ready. But Suge Knight was no, we ain't gonna wait for that. If you're ready, if you're showing heart, then we're gonna do it. So I believe he, although Dog Pound was on Death Row Records, I believe it came out under Sony Entertainment, in parts with Death Row, just because they don't have to go through all the Interscope politics in that case, because Interscope have this calendar of albums to come out, and then obviously, you've got the Dog Pound, wanting to skip the queue, and Interscope weren't happy with that. But Suge Knight looked after him, respect for that, fair enough. Dog Pound and Dog Food went on to be really successful. I believe Dog Food went gold in its first year, which is really impressive. If you haven't heard it, by the way, if you haven't heard Dog Food, go listen to it. It's fantastic. There's a really good song on there, which we're going to be talking about as well right now, called New York, New York. And this sort of sparked off a rivalry between New York and the Dog Pound, and Snoop Dogg in general, because in this video, they went to shoot it in Brooklyn, and there's a really famous interview with Angela Martinez. I don't think you can find the footage in many places, but Angela Martinez, if you don't know her, interviews all the massive hip hop artists, and she still does. She's got a really good. And this is sort of the inspiration for what I'm doing now. She's got a really good show. It came out, I believe it was last year, the start of last year, end of 2018. It was called Untold Hip Hop Stories. We got loads of really good short watches on there that I really recommend you go watch. You got a really good one from A$AP Rocky and DJ Khaled, where he met Beyonce. But I digress. So they go to New York to film this video, and at the time when they're filming this video, Biggie Smalls is on the radio with Angela Martinez, and he's going on about, we can't go to LA and do a video or make a song without anyone's permission, and we're that always gets broken up, so why should they? I'm not saying to do anything, Brooklyn, but come on, what's going on? How come they're allowed to come here and make a video in our city, disrespecting us like that? And he's I'm not saying to do anything, but and in the 90s, Biggie was the god of New York. You had Biggie, Nas, Biggie and Nas, Puffy and all that. They were running New York in the 90s. So if Biggie says jump, New York's going to say how high. And if Biggie implies to do something, then it's going to go pop off. Do you know what I mean? So apparently at this video, they're in the trailer, Daz, Snoop, and Corrupt. And they had this sort of psh, psh, on the window. And they look around, they're like, the fuck was that? And then they hear another go psh, psh, just shattering off the window. And Snoop shouts they're shooting, fucking get on the floor, get down. So Snoop's bodyguard comes in, goes where's Snoop at? Where's Snoop at? And there's no answer. And he goes, it's me, you fucking idiots. And Snoop's get the fuck off me. Because Daz and Corrupt are covering him under some sheets and all that sort of shit. So yeah, that all popped off. apparently after that incident, the dog pound didn't speak for a week because they're all just like sort of down. Like they didn't really mean to disrespect New York. They didn't really mean to go into there, to show any disrespect whatsoever. They were going it because they liked New York, and we're going to be talking about it a little bit later with Snoop Dogg. But Corrupt like came up with this idea, and this is where it leads back to dog food. He was like, "Fuck that shit. We're gonna go make a video where we're kicking all the buildings in New York down," and that's what they did. Like as I say, if you haven't heard the song New York, New York, very, very good song. And the video is them just like kicking down loads of buildings in New York. But this is where it sort of leads into Snoop Dogg's story for me. Because if we're talking about beefs of the 90s and we're talking about beefs just in general in hip-hop history, I don't think there's... I mean, you talk about Biggie and Pac, but like that was part of a smaller beef in my opinion. Like you had Bad Boy versus Death Row, and that was just like, the biggest thing. So going into this is a very infamous and famous award show, mainly just because of what happens. Going into the MTV show, I believe it was in 1990. I think this was 1995, I believe. Going into the MTV Awards in the Madison Square Garden, there's a really infamous bit where Suge Knight literally just like disses like the whole of New York in front of New York, in front of Puffy, in front of everybody, and it's about to fucking pop off. And this is an example of how like reckless Suge Knight was back in the day. But as I say, there's another really infamous story on the same night where then Puffy gets on the mic and and tries to stay respectful and all that sort of stuff, but it's gonna pop off until Snoop Dogg and I believe it's Dre and the Dog Pound get on stage, and like there's a really famous bit where like Snoop Dogg's like, New York got no love for Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, like you got no love for Death Row, like we here, like let it be heard then, like and then they all start booing and all that sort of stuff. And Snoop Dogg said in an interview, he was like, I knew it was gonna go down. I heard, from Suge's speech to as soon as they got on stage, they heard the booing and all that. And on that night, I believe, I mean in my opinion anyway, that really saved a lot of lives. That just because there was no way that New York were going to let him out, and I thought it was really respectful of Snoop Dogg, just to come out and sort of make that statement and stand in front of New York and say, let it be known that we don't like you. It's like, you got no love for us. Let it be known, like speak your mind. And that's, in my opinion, that's sort of like a really respectful moment where like New York turned around and went, we're gonna let you out, we're gonna let you go, we're gonna gonna let this slide. But yeah, like Suge Knight was just reckless as hell, and he ran Death Row like a gang. I mean, you might have seen it in the film. Just an example, you might have seen it in the film where Dre comes out of the studio with Pac because he hears loads of noise, and like there's this guy getting fucking beat up by like 5 fucking massive bloods, and Dr. Dre's like, what the fuck's going on, blah blah blah. Apparently that was very, very that was the norm at Death Row. And Corrupt also talks about this as well, saying, this was nothing new. Like, they literally got treated like a gang. There was a lot of sound engineers that got disrespected and got bullied, by certain artists and certain executives. And as I say, it was just run by a gang, mainly because Suge employed gang members, like, as security, as bodyguards, as everything basically. He didn't have like, it wasn't run like a normal record label, and I don't think anyone would ever get away with that again, just because it was a different time. But there's a really infamous thing that Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg talked about. Corrupt also mentioned this as well, where there was a bucket at Death Row, and I'm talking about a literal bucket, the type of bucket that you fucking put water in and shit, except it wasn't water in this. It was a piss bucket. And there was a really infamous scene that Snoop Dogg, he's mentioned it as well, and Corrupt's mentioned this like really specifically as well. There was a certain moment where like this guy, this executive had fucked up on like travel plans, or like hotel bookings or something. It was something just minor, something that would probably, like in a normal company, obviously get like a disciplinary or something, or like a pay cut or whatever. But this is Death Row we're talking about. This is Death Row we're talking about in 1995. So this is a horrible story. So as I say, this is just an example of Suge Knight. Suge Knight, who fucking beat someone half to death with a crowbar because he took up the parking space. So he gets everyone around to piss in this bucket, like everybody. He goes up to this guy. He drags him in the toilet and like sits him down, and he goes, "You either drink this, or I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you." And the guy's like, and so he's like, "No, you either drink this, or I'm gonna fucking beat you up for real." And like, if you've never seen Suge Knight, Suge Knight's a big dude. Like, he is a big dude. So, you know, lug, he fucking drank it. Like, if that was me, I don't give a shit. Like, I'd take my beating like a man. Like, I'm sorry, no one's making me drink piss, but I suppose, like, in that situation, like, you know, people react differently. But yeah, like, that was just an example of like Suge Knight. Like, there was a party, there was a party where the Dog Pound and the Outlaws got into it, and Suge Knight was involved. And I think that was just after he forced Eazy to sign that contract to release Dre. Not really depicted as accurately in the films as it was. Apparently, it wasn't. I think it was a gun that he pointed at Eazy's head. He didn't beat him up or anything. But apparently, he threatened him with a pistol in real life, and that's coming from Eazy's daughter. So, you know, it's a pretty reliable source, I suppose. So, yeah, Death Row was fucking manic at that time, and this really leads into Tupac. Because, as you know, Tupac wasn't always with Death Row. He got sentenced to prison, and then Suge offered to pay his bail with the promise of if I pay your bail, then you come, you know, work for me. Then, and it was Snoop Dogg that set it up, apparently, just like a little known fact for you. So, Pac gets out of prison, and for me, Tupac was really influenced badly by Death Row, but at the start, obviously, like, you know, he was cool with everybody. You had the Outlaws, and you had Tupac, and you had Snoop Dogg and the Dog Pound. And apparently, there's like this really interesting conversation when you know, Snoop and Pac first sort of met, where he was saying to Snoop Dogg, he was teaching him this theory in this book that's called The Art of War, and he was saying, like, you know, my guys talk to me, I relay the information to you. Your guys talk to you, and you relay the information to me. Your guys don't talk to me, my guys don't talk to you, because, you know, we're the commanders and they're the soldiers. And Snoop was like, apparently at the time he had no idea what the fuck was really going on. And this is a story that he told that I thought was really funny. Like, he had no idea what was going on. He was high as fuck, and it's, you know, he was a young, stupid kid. So there's a really infamous bit in in Death Row history where apparently Corrupt is like really drunk, and Corrupt said he approached Pac and said, you know, when I'm out with you, treat me like one of your outlaws. I'm gonna follow your directions. You know, just treat me like one of your homies. And Pac was like, yeah, I got you. So apparently there's this bit where something's going on at this club, and Corrupt keeps like smashing his Hennessy bottle off the table, off the chair, and he's fucking hammered. And Tupac was like, stop banging your fucking bottle off the table. And Corrupt was like, you don't tell me what to do, you know, this fucking Dog Pound. And Tupac was like, what, like, we're going absolutely fucking insane, like, just going mad. And he goes, I'm gonna take you upstairs, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you, go and come back down and have a drink. And Corrupt was like, let's fucking fight right now, blah blah blah. And Snoop Dogg's like, you know, try to calm it all down. And he, like, Pac's looking at him like, didn't we just have this conversation where, like, like, you guys don't talk to me? And he was like, and then it just clicked. He was like, oh shit, yeah, I forgot about this whole conversation. So Pac was like, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of Corrupt. And then Nate Dogg stands up and goes, and what the fuck are we supposed to do while that's going on? So, you know, it's all about to kick off, and Suge actually stepped in and broke that up. And then apparently, like, Tupac just fucking like strolled off and was like, I can't go fucking anywhere without my outlaws, man. So yeah, so that was and that was one of the last times the Dog Pound ever saw Tupac. It might have been the last time, because apparently they never made up from that. Apparently that was they had some beef when Tupac died. So moving on to the influences that Tupac had, like, I think he was really badly influenced by Death Row, and I think there was. In my opinion, I think there's two versions of Tupac. There's a Tupac before he joined Death Row, you know, the political sort of calm, relaxed sort of, like, you know, just, I don't know how to describe it, you know, but and then there's Tupac that was in death row, that was more like sort of gang affiliated and more influenced by Suge Knight to, put fucking fuel on the fire. And that's Suge's fault. I definitely blame Suge Knight for that, because he saved Tupac, and then I think Tupac looked at him as like a father figure in a way, just because he saved him. He paid his bail, and he got him out of the East Coast. So you can't really blame Pac for having that sort of relationship with Suge. But there's a really infamous once again bit, and this is how Snoop Dogg and Tupac sort of fell out. There was an interview while they were in New York, and Snoop Dogg went to this interview, and he was asked, what do you think of Puffy? What do you think of Biggie? And Snoop was like, I love them guys. I hope to make songs with them in the future and all that. And at the time, there was this the fucking massive beef going on with Tupac and Biggie. So he comes back to the hotel, and obviously they don't speak to him. And they get to the plane, and Suge Knight doesn't allow any of Snoop Dogg's security, any of Snoop Dogg's bodyguards on the plane. So Snoop Dogg has to get on the plane by himself, obviously with all of Tupac's entourage and all of Suge's entourage. So he gets on the plane, and he tries to talk to Tupac. He's like, you going to the fight in Vegas, dude? Tupac apparently just blows him off, just looks the other way, and just doesn't speak to him. And this is a long flight. This is New York to LA, like a 5-hour flight. Imagine being on a plane for 5 hours with no one talking to you. You're in, and think of the people that are on that plane. That's scary. So apparently Snoop Dogg goes to the back of the plane. He gets a blanket. He pulls it right up to his neck, and under the blanket he is holding a knife and a fork. Just expecting to be jumped on this flight, but he doesn't get jumped on the flight. And that must have been scary as fuck. As I say, it's a 5-hour flight with people who hate you right now. And Suge Knight being the type of guy that he is, you'd got to expect some sort of happenings going down on that plane, but apparently there wasn't. So he gets off the plane. Snoop tries to talk to him again, saying, you're going to this fight in Vegas, the Tyson fight, the very famous, scenario now. And Tupac's once again just blows him off and doesn't speak to him. And Snoop Dogg's like, yeah, well, we're not going. And that's the last time they saw each other before Snoop Dogg went to visit Pac in the hospital. And Snoop Dogg always sort of regrets that now. I mean, it wasn't his fault, and he hates the fact that the last time they saw each other, that they were falling out. The Dog Pound all kind of regret it, to be honest. And I'm like, if it was the other way around, I'm pretty sure Tupac would regret it as well. So it's a really sad ending. But we're going to talk about something that happened a little bit before that, while they were still in New York. So Nas at the time was in a bit of a war of words, should I say, with Tupac. And there's a lot of footage, and there's a lot of examples on the songs where they're sort of taking shots at each other but not actually mentioning the names. There's some songs where they actually do reference each other. Tupac does it a lot in Machiavelli, and we'll get to that in a minute. But so as I say, Tupac at the time had a lot of beef with New York. He had a lot of beef with Biggie. He had a lot of beef with Puff Daddy. He had a lot of beef with Mobb Deep, along with the Outlaws. They had a lot of beef with Mobb Deep as well. So they're going through Central Park, and this is where all the stories start to intertwine. There's a version from Nas, and there's a version from Tupac. Sorry, not Tupac. There's a version from Snoop Dogg, and there's a version, I believe, as well from Corrupt. And I like the way I've structured this. I thought, all the stories have sort of come together. It's like sort of I planned it from the very beginning. It's like I have notes in front of me. The great thing is I don't have any notes in front of me because I'm that good. I can't be asked getting the applause thing again, or else, you would be hearing people cheering for me right now. But there's a really famous bit in New York, and as I say, this story is told from multiple accounts, where Tupac and his boys and quite a lot of people from death row, let's say 8 or 9 people, Snoopy's definitely there and Corrupt's there as well, are walking through Central Park in New York. And Nas is also in Central Park in New York. And this is where the stories start to differ, because Nas says, at this point, they chopped it up. They had a bit of a conversation. You know, like Tupac turned around to him and said, you know, they both agreed, to work better. They both said, they were soldiers fighting on the same team. Mainly because like Pac was very political and Nas is very, very political as well. So they both agreed to chop it up, and this is where Corrupt sort of comes in as well and says on the way back. And who else talks about this as well? There's someone who we're missing off that also talks about this, and like it's a very good account as well. I can't exactly remember who it is. It might have been Corrupt, but it's definitely Corrupt. But there's someone else who also says. So I think it was like a couple of days later, like Machiavelli was supposed to drop, and on Machiavelli, as you know, there's a lot of songs on there, and there's a lot of digs at Nas, and him just hating on Nas and all that sort of stuff. Now, before Pac died, apparently, he said to Suge and he said to Corrupt that, it was Suge. It was Suge, actually. That might have been the second person. He said he was going back to... And as I say, like, Corrupt didn't hear him say this. This is just like a second account because he didn't really speak after the whole incident. So Corrupt says that Tupac said to Suge, I'm going to go back to the recording studio after we come back from Vegas. I'm going to take all the lines, all the insults that I digged at Nas on the tracks and replace them with someone else that I hate. Because we've had a conversation, we've chopped it up, and I love that guy, do you know what I mean? And sadly he never got to do that, as you know. And Nas is, Nas also says, he knew he was going to do that, so he doesn't hold any, grudges against him because obviously, he heard the album when it came out. Now, this is where the story differs a lot, like, quite a lot. And I don't know if Snoop Dogg's missed anything out, but from my point of view, this is where the story differs, and I don't know who to believe, because on one side you've got Nas, and you've got a few people saying this happened. But on the other side, you've got Snoop Dogg, who has no reason to lie, and he's not really known as someone who exaggerates anything. He's not really known as someone who, doesn't tell the truth. So this is what Snoop Dogg said happened, and it's pretty similar all the way up to the point where Nas and him meet. Now, coming from the streets, as he put it, he could see that there were a lot of people hanging around Central Park. A lot of New York people, with hands in the pockets, looking a bit shady. Obviously, with Nas, and Pac didn't see this. Obviously, you know what they're reaching for. Obviously, they've got they've got the straps in the pocket. So apparently, Pac's in Nas's ear saying all this shit about New York and all that, and Nas is on the other side going, "I ain't got no problem with you, Pac. I love you, Pac. You know what I mean? Like, we're good." And Pac says, well, in that case, I've got an album coming out, and I'm dissing you, Puffy, Jay-Z, all you bitch-ass motherfuckers from New York. And if you haven't got a problem with me, you better not fucking say anything when it comes out, or else we're going to fucking have problems. And Nas, staying calm, is like, yeah, cool, we're cool, man. He shakes his hand, he's like, I love you, Pac. Like, you know what I mean? We're good, like, we ain't got no issues. Now, Snoop describes this as, on that night, Nas saved their lives, like the death row and all the entourage and whoever was with Pac, because Pac didn't see, but Snoop saw about 100 people in that park, just circling, just around. Apparently, as he puts it, like coming from the streets, he knows when something's about to go down, and he knows to look around and watch your back. Apparently, there was like 100 people there with Nas, and Nas wasn't bitching out. Nas wasn't sort of backing down or anything. He was being cool that night, and he knew the situation, and he was being real. Do you know what I mean? Like, you let him go. So that's where the story differs, and as I said, I don't know who to believe. What do you guys think? Because it's crazy, and I think that both of the stories are very plausible, like 100%, because we knew what Pat was like. We knew his mentality, both being a person who was kind and caring and respectful, because all the songs that he made about, politics, all the songs that he made about women, all the songs, he was very respectful. And like, there's, as I said, there's another story where Snoop Dogg said, he's the reason why I'm married to my wife, because he was being a dick, and everyone else around him was saying, to ditch that bitch, because she ain't shit and all that. And Pac was the only person that turned around him and said, fuck that, she loves you, like, she's a good woman, you should fucking marry her. Fuck all these people, they have no idea what they're talking about. So, yeah. And on the other side, you've got the Tupac of Death Row, who fucking beat the shit out of someone in a casino and got on TV shows and fucking dissed New York, and was basically fucking wilding out, like, for the last year of his life. So I'm gonna leave that up to you. What you guys think about that story, because I think, as I say, it could have gone both ways. I'm leaning in the direction of believing both sides in different ways. I think if we want to put the two stories together, I think maybe Pac started, the conversation dissing and, chatting loads of shit, and then maybe they came to an understanding and then they shook hands, and that's where the corrupt story, sort of jumps in. But I don't know. That's my opinion. I want to hear your guys' opinion. Like, message me if you enjoyed this video, by the way, guys. We're coming to the end. Seeing as though we're talking about all those people, I do want to bring up a couple of songs that I want to like, give a shout out to. I'm going to give a shout out to every single person who we've talked about in this song, in this video, in terms of, like, I'm going to go give you a song from each person to listen to, just because, like, a lot of these people have tunes that I think we forget how good they are. I mean, I'm not the biggest. I'm gonna go out there right now and say I'm not the biggest fan of Tupac at all. Like, I appreciate that he's one of the greatest of all time, and, like, he's definitely earned that spot in history. But I think maybe he's not my favorite, if you know what I mean. And that's no disrespect at all to the man, and that's no disrespect to his legacy, and that's no comment on how good of an artist he is. But from that, I do want to say, we all know about the All Eyes on Me. We all know about Ambitions as a Rider. We all know about Changes. Stuff like that. Go and listen to the album Tupacalypse. Go listen to the album I Don't Give a Fuck. You might recognize that name of that song from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. It was on Radio Los Santos. It's an absolute banger, and it's one of my favorite Tupac songs. I just think it's a really good tune. It's not usually mentioned in some of his best songs, but I think that's one of his best songs. Talking about Nas, this is another thing that not a lot of people talk about. People talk about Illmatic, and it was written, and all the albums that he released in the 90s, but not a lot of people talk about Stillmatic. And this was the album that Ether was on, with the whole Jay-Z and Nas beef. I want to talk about that in a later video, but that's the album that song is on. There's a song on the album that I really enjoy. It's called "Got Yourself a ... And so you can, I suppose you can just call it "Got Yourself a Gun." Very good, amazing, fantastic, really good album, I think. And that's probably my favorite song on the album. Who else have we talked about today? Snoop Dogg. Talk about Snoop Dogg. I'm not even going to mention a song for Snoop Dogg. I think I've talked about it. I think I've bigged Snoop Dogg up so fucking much. If I was going to recommend anything about Snoop Dogg, because I've been hearing a lot about it this week, because obviously I've been looking at these stories and everything, go listen to his gospel album, I suppose, if you want to hear something different. Because that's when he sort of... There's a really cool story behind that as well, where he said his nana or his grandma never could listen to any of his songs because, she wasn't into that music, and she was more of like a gospel church sort of lady. As he describes it, a classic old, lady, like, say, the woman from Friday, with the big hat at the beginning, like, who works for the church. And Ice Cube shuts the door on her. A woman like that, apparently. So he made that gospel album because he wanted her to listen to some of his music. I mean, like, it's a famous grandson, and she's never been able to listen to any of his music. So I thought that was nice. I thought that was really nice. So yeah, go listen to that. Why not? I listened to it. It's not really my cup of tea. But as I say, like, I appreciated it. I thought it was quite good for what it was. I mean, it's a gospel album. Like, what can you say? It's better than fucking Kanye West's fucking Follow God album. Like, what is the Ye come to, man? Like, Jesus Christ. And that is a story for a different day. Finally, Corrupt. Go listen to Seawalk, man. If you can find... It's not on Spotify. If you can't find the album on Spotify, because I don't think it's on there at all, go find the album Corruption. It's on YouTube, and you can buy it in stores and all that. Go listen to Corruption. The album is amazing. It's on that's the album that song's on, Seawalk. It's also on Grand Theft Auto 5. It's one of my favorite Corrupt songs. I was buzzing when I found out that it was on GTA 5 when I turned on when I turned on West Coast Classics and that came on. I was like, oh, what a tune to decide, because it's such a random song to choose to put on there. It's not the most well known song, so definitely go listen to that. But I'm gonna call it there, guys. That's the end of story time. If you like these story times, I have got so many stories. I've got so many hip hop stories that I can tell you guys. I love talking about hip hop stories. I think it's really interesting, and you always learn something new if you don't know it. But with that said, guys, if you like this video, slap a like on it. If you like the channel, if you like where we're going, I'm loving what we're doing at the minute. By the way, shout out to all of you guys who showed so much love for that 6ix9ine News video. Go check out the album review that I did. It's currently sitting on nearly 150 views, so thank you for that. Subscribe to the channel, as I say, if you like the content. I'm really trying to step up my game in terms of editing, in terms of creating more of an atmosphere when I'm talking. Go like the Instagram page, please, at Chart Topper Radio. It's the same name. Go like the Facebook group, also the same name. I'll accept you into the group if you send a request. Share this video, as I say. With that said, guys, hope you have a really great Easter weekend. I hope you enjoyed. I love you all, and peace.